Hi guys, George here. I thought I heard water running. Anywho, could be because of the topic that I want to cover now. I'm not too sure if I'll be able to cover it all in one shot. Um, but as you can guess, I've decided to tackle landing craft. Now, having said that, um, at one point or another, when I was doing the other video with respect to boats, I kind of looked and glanced at the rule book and I saw that landing craft were actually in chapter G as in George. I said I was better off doing landing craft before I did anything about boats. But it turns out that landing craft is indeed much more involved than ordinary boats. And the important thing about landing craft is not only the landing craft rules themselves, but the terrain and seaborne assault rules associated with landing craft. So you got beaches and seaborne assaults, which are another two sets of rules in Chapter G that are inherently associated with landing craft. Unless, of course, you have landing craft going across rivers, but rarely happens. So what I decided to do is to break it up into 4 videos. This is the first of the 4 series associated only with landing craft. And this first part has to do with some inherent characteristics and uh, with respect to the crew and passengers of landing craft. Notice I did not say riders. So one of the rules with respect to how landing craft operate is there's no riders allowed. So part 1 will be riders. Part 2 will be motion. Everything you need to know about moving a landing craft, unloading it and loading it. Part 3 has to do with non-ordnance attacks, and part 4 will be ordnance attacks and other types of attacks against a landing craft. And at some point in the future, I would like to tackle beaches, and I would like to tackle seaborne assaults, but they're quite involved. So be patient with me, and again, I want to reiterate that I'm not a master, and by no means am I a rule book lawyer that knows everything there is to know about the rules. And as a matter of fact, I do not have the latest edition of Chapter G, which is with the Rising Sun module. Um, Now let's dive right in. Right, I was hoping really that landing craft was introduced way back earlier, and I'm happy just to have discovered in it that they do exist in Chapter G just the same. Now, I could understand my yearning for perhaps a hassle about one of the uh, D-Day beaches, Juneau, Omaha, Sword, Utah. One of those, we've done St. Mary de Lise. I would be really thrilled if I saw a historical ASL module for one of those particular battles, especially Juneau for some reason or another. Anyway, hopefully wishful thinking for the future. But so far, if you do want to partake in the cardboard game with respect to landing craft, you really need to get Rising Sun on my bucket list. All right, now, so what ASL has, at least in Chapter G, is 9 types um, of landing craft, most of which you see here. You have the LCPL, LCM3, LCA, LCIS, LCVP, LCT4. And those are American slash British. And then you have the 2 Japanese types, Daihatsu and Shohatsu. So basically what you have here is the normal indicator for movement points, then the armor factors, um, main armament and coax bow, and AA, the rate of fire, and +2 is uh, damage points. So how does Chapter G start with respect to the inherent characteristics of a landing craft and passengers versus inherent crew? It starts off by characterizing them as boats, but not quite as boats, and as vehicles, but not quite as vehicles. So there are certain rules that apply to landing craft that are in Chapter E, and certain rules that apply to Chapter D as in Donald or Delta. However, landing craft are not exactly boats, and they're not exactly um, vehicles. Or, as the rulebook um, characterizes them under Rule 12.1, 9 types of landing craft are provided, most of which you see here. Okay, landing craft are treated as boats, E5 dot, except as stated otherwise, but the rules specified to assault boats and rafts, E5.11, point 2.122, do not apply. Landing craft are considered vehicles, however, they are not treated as AFEs except as specifically indicated. Well, in other words, they are a type of boat that is treated as a vehicle versus entirely as a boat, and they have special characteristics that are unique only to landing craft. So, unlike boats, landing craft do have a covered arc, which is similar to a vehicle. And you can rotate them, well, lastly you can rotate them, and they travel according to their covered arc focal point. And so when they beach, unlike boats, they kind of beach along their covered arc, just like so. And unlike boats, they do not need to be occupied um, by a certain number of infantry in order to put them in motion. They have their own inherent crew. They have their movement points as if they were vehicles in that sense of the word. Um, and yeah, well, boats, German assault boats had an inherent crew, similar to landing craft. Um, but as we said before, they have an inherent crew, and they have a covered arc. Okay. Now, going on to 12.11, and basically what I'm providing you here are highlights or my major takeaways of the rules. It's not a complete tutorial. I highly urge you to read the entire rules for landing craft in Chapter G, in addition to watching this video. So, we have inherent crews. They have a morale of 8. There is no leader or leader creation, and um, basically buttoned up is not allowed, as far as I can understand it. And there is no recall as well if there is a mouth of the main armament or support weapon. And the other thing you need to know is that if it suffers a stun result, it still doesn't go buttoned up. Instead, um, the stun effects are cumulative. So the +1 DRM for that a vehicle incurs after being stunned, in this case it applies, but it is cumulative. So if it suffers a second stun effect, it will be a +2 dice roll modifier to its to-hit roll, if any exist. So there you have it. Um, okay. Um, Under 12.112, what that rule kind of stipulates, or the major takeaway from there, is that the inherent crew of a landing craft cannot abandon its vehicles, even for an immobilization task check. Even if it occurs an immobilization task check, it is not the crew um, cannot abandon its vehicle. Now, if for any reason there is a crew survival, the crew that appears from the vehicle, the landing craft, is a 127, and for all intents and purposes on land, it is considered inexperienced unless manning machine guns, support weapon MGs, and AAMGs. So conceivably, if this unit, if this crew was an American, he could man that AAMG and that MG as a regular crew, but in all other intents and purposes, if it was trying to handle a mortar or a gun, it would suffer the inexperience penalty. If stipulated that the crew of the inherent crew of LC is inexperienced, what happens is its uh, movement point is reduced by 1. Now, the other rule that's important to note is that uh, no landing craft can portage another landing craft, and at the same time they cannot be towed. That's what I understood from 12.12. Under 12.121, what that stipulates is that you cannot have let's say, a vehicle in here and retain motion status. But however, if the landing craft is beached, uh, that vehicle needs to expend 1 movement point to start and disembark from the landing craft. The other important note is here, when the portage points are underlined, it means it has a rank and it can portage vehicles. If it does not have a underscore on the PP designation, it means that simply the door is open, so infantry only can come disembark um, from the landing craft. In the case of the Japanese, the Sohatsu is for infantry only, and for the Daihatsu it is for infantry and vehicles. And this is where that difference is really accentuated between one type and another type of landing crafts. And while in the landing craft, the vehicle retains the same covered arc as the landing craft. Also, all MMCs and I guess leaders, all passengers retain the same inherent morale as the crew, which is 8. I'm expecting this video to last, I was expecting this video to last 10 minutes. It's now 13. Oh well. Alright, so under 12.123, landing craft are considered buttoned up and can claim, are not, no, are considered buttoned up? No, they're not considered buttoned up and can't claim CE benefits. Landing craft passengers are considered buttoned up but can't claim benefits. Let's take a look at that. 12.123. See what happens when you take notes. And okay, button up CE status. LC passengers, excluding certain large vehicles and guns per so and so, are considered button up through their LC armored target facings. LC passengers can never be CE or claim CE benefits, even if normally allowed to be buttoned up. And there's a lot of X's there. But I'm guessing that crew are always can never be buttoned up. So under 12.11, inherent crew can never be buttoned up. Under 12.123, passengers are always considered buttoned up and cannot claim any CE status. Hope that was clear. Okay, under 12.13, we learned that morale checks and task checks are, are nothing that can affect the inherent crew. So they're immune to task checks PTCs, leader loss morale checks, and leader loss test checks. They're not subject to pin or heat of battle, and basically all these detrimental effects, I believe, are treated as stuns. And when passengers break, it's treated as a casualty reduction instead of a break. So that's more or less under 12.13. And at no time do any leader or hero DRMs apply. Under 12.14, we learn that riders don't exist. So what does that mean? What that means is that basically you can only have passengers, crew and passengers. There's no riders, and riders would imply that people are hanging on the edge of the boat with ropes or whatnot, riding alongside the vehicle or on top of the vehicle, but not inside, situated within the walls of the vehicle. So remember, for landing craft, we only have inherent crew and passengers, although the generic term PRC is used throughout the rule set for landing craft. All good. Now, there is generally two types of passengers. For a landing craft, there's vehicles, and there is infantry. So you have an infantry stack and a vehicular stack. And basically, what you need to know is that the order of the stack counts for what is in front and what is stacked in the back. So you have a order that is from bottom up, okay? And I'm not going to talk about stacking, but stacking is covered under 12.15. Basically, what that says in general is that the stacking limits do not apply for the landing craft itself, and you have to see, I believe, a table to ascertain the portage points as to how they are incurred. For example, here we got 114 portage points. Now, back to the order of the stack. The top vehicle is considered to be the vehicle in front. The vehicle in the middle is in the middle, and the vehicle on the bottom of the stack is considered to be in the back of the landing craft. So if something happens, like if something to this effect happens, the landing craft is beached, and the front tank is eliminated by some stroke of luck or fire, then that wreck has to be cleared before the other tanks behind it or on the bottom of the stack can disembark. As well, the vehicles in a landing craft cannot be rearranged at any point in time. However, for infantry, there is a freedom to be rearranged. And it's treated as if that rearrangement is treated as if that is taking place in open ground. Now that's more or less part one of this video series. And we only covered a brief overview of what a landing craft is, some of its inherent elements, and the fact that we don't have riders. We have only passengers and inherent crew. We spoke about cumulative stun results, and if a passenger breaks, their casualty reduced instead of breaking. I think it was a good introduction. In a following video, part 2, I hope to cover certain aspects about motion. And I'll give you a little heads up. There are all sorts of I forgot to put my my thinking cap on. Jeez. There are a lot of exceptions, especially when you're dealing with high surf and piers. And we'll talk more about that later on. Now, with that said, I would like to conclude my video at this juncture. So this is part 1 for landing craft. Stay tuned for part 2, 3, and 4. as I described at the beginning of the video. And as always, if you have any comments, feel free to comment below. Keep things respectful. So far, I haven't had issues, but I had some issues in the past where um, people were argumentative, challenged me about rules, went as far as making comments about hiding behind skirts, and other more uh, detrimental comments as to, oh, what is this channel about? Is it about a grown man playing video games? Well, I'll tell you what, boys and girls. I started this channel inadvertently doing something else other than Squad Leader. And I was inspired to start it with my son at the time when he was playing with Legos. I have since made those videos private as per his wishes. And when I discovered how to do videos using PowerPoint, initially I was doing Classic Squad Leader and some text videos, which gained popularity later on. Throughout this time, I was a single dad raising two young boys, and I think I did a fairly good job. And I didn't touch Squad Leader or any other game for that matter until, well, 2.5, 3 years after my separation, where my estranged spouse and myself went our separate ways. So with that said, being in a position where I cook for myself, I clean my own home, I do all my chores on my own, I deserve a game once in a while. And I got to hand it to myself for doing a great job. And that's more or less what this channel is about. It's about a grown man having a great work-life balance, taking care of two young men. Well, they're young men now. They're no longer kids, you know. And from time to time, enjoying a good game with some good friends. Now, I had this opportunity to do this video because it was the anniversary of my good friend Alain Chabot that got me into Advanced Squad Leader, whether I liked it or not. So it's his anniversary with his significant other, Claire. And I want to wish them many more happy ones. And in case you don't know who Alain Chabot is, you can find his name in the rule book in the back under credits. And I'll tell you which page it's on exactly, under J2, as in Joker 2. And we have the game development by Don Greenwood. And playtest group coordinators, Alain Chabot. And assistant rule developers, Alain Chabot. Rewrite assistants, I'll see his credit there. So, and proofreaders, I'm pretty sure he's one of the proofreaders as well. Could be wrong. But he's all over the place. And so that's why I had the opportunity and the time to do this video. It comes at a cost of my time, and it's really precious. But overall, I'm really happy with the way the channel has progressed. It has really grown. It's hovering around 670, and my other son, my eldest son, tells me that eventually monetization will occur after 500 subscribers, and I know in the UK that threshold has moved, but we're waiting for that threshold also to move to Canada. And if this channel is ever monetized, I'm not too sure what I'm going to do with any funds that I acquire. And so I wish you guys a great week ahead. I recorded this video Tuesday night. You should get it early Saturday morning. And I'm also looking forward for Strum Front Saturdays to take off. It's in infant stages, and basically I called it Strum Front Saturdays because from time to time while playing my opponents, I like to strum a couple of notes. And it's a play of words. Eyes, low roll, low roll, low roll, low roll, low roll, low, low roll, low roll, roll low. I'm getting that reversed. What am I doing? Becoming a Yoda? Anyways, have a great week ahead, guys. Take care. Bye.